Hello and welcome back to the Football Fetishists podcast. I am your host today, Darian Matassa-Fung, and I'm joined by my two colleagues.
Hey, I'm Dan Mountain.
I'm George, and I'm also ready to lose another bet, so feeling great.
What is that, 4 out of 5, George?
Yeah, that's right.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5 ain't bad. But...
So we'll start off right away with the loser of last week's bet. Unfortunately, it's George again.
Which this one's just a product of going third, you know.
What was the bet that we did? Was it the top running backs?
Top running backs, and of course I had the third pick, which meant Todd Gurley and Lev Bell were right out there.
Right.
Which, Jerry, I just want to say thank you so much for taking Todd Gurley.
Don't worry about it.
Because he was going to take.
If you were taking Lev Bell, I would have taken Mark Ingram, and this would be me with the wasabi, because Mark Ingram had less than Leonard Fournette.
You would have taken Mark Ingram.
I would have taken Ingram over Gurley.
Wow.
Which would have been a mistake.
Okay, so last week's bet was eat a big wob of wasabi. So here we go.
Have you guys eaten wasabi?
I've never. Yeah. I do, but not like
this.
It
hurts, man. It hurts.
Never
I've had straight
like
wasabi. It is not good. Are you gonna eat all of? Oh my god!
All right, here we go. George with the wasabi.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Chew it up.
Oh,
you gotta chew it up.
Are you gonna puke? Oh my god!
Don't throw up. Don't throw up. Don't throw up.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Oh, that's hard to watch. Oh, as painful as that must be to feel, that's hard to watch. I'm so sorry,
George.
George.
That looked rough, Georgie. His eyes
That
were
was a short-lived. That was short-lived. Like it's gone now. But I thought I was gonna throw up there.
Oh my god.
Okay. So
okay, let's move on.
Moving on, our first segment of the day, we're gonna do sneaky starts for you guys this week. I think we all have one guy. George is gonna talk about two guys. And these are guys that, could be on your roster, that are on your bench, but you're looking, the waiver wire's thin. You got to find someone to start. So
let's think. Right now for week 13, I mean, chances are you're not picking anyone up the waiver wire.
No one left.
And you might have two guys you're deciding between that could be the difference in making the playoffs.
So here we go.
And I just want to say for the listeners, George is a swallower. In case anybody was curious, it looked like he was going to spit it up, but he took it like a champion. He's definitely a swallower, not a spitter.
Goddamn right.
So we'll start with Dan. Who do you got?
This is sneaky starts, right?
That is correct.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna go on. You're welcome. I was too busy watching you try to power down that wasabi. So I'm gonna go on a bit of a stat rant here. My sneaky start is
new?
Jared. I know. It's just who I am. I'm sorry. My sneaky start is Jared Cook. So here's a hot take. I think Jared Cook is gonna be the #1 tight end in fantasy this week.
Whoa!
I'm not saying that I would bench Gronk for him. Gronk's floor is obviously safer, but I am saying that unless your name is Gronk, Ertz, or Kelsey, who have safer floors, I would start Jared Cook over any other tight end this week. And if I had those other tight ends, I would flex Jared Cook. Here's what I have to say. If I had to make tight end projections, I'd make him #1. He's 80% owned, so you obviously can't pick him up. But if you play DFS, I think there's a great upside here. And if you have to choose between him and someone else, go Cook in almost any situation. Cooper is unlikely to play because in one play last week he got a concussion and an ankle injury. Crabtree suspended for temporarily becoming a UFC fighter on the sidelines last week when he played the Giants. Last week when he played Denver. This week he plays the Giants. The Giants have given up the most fantasy points to tight ends this year, and besides Cleveland, they've given up the most points by a lot. And I just want to say I'm mad at Vernon Davis because he ruined my stat rant this week. Did you know that besides Vernon Davis last week and Travis Kelce the week before that, who still put up over 100 yards against them, the Giants have given up a touchdown to the tight end in every single week this year. Weeks 1 to 10, every single tight end has gotten a touchdown against them. Let's go through them. Okay, so week 11, obviously we had Travis Kelce put up 8 receptions for 109 yards, no touchdown. But then before that, we had Garrett Seelick light them up for 67 yards and a touchdown. Gerald Everett had a touchdown against them in week 9. Jimmy Graham got 60 yards and a touchdown before that. Jeff Heuerman got a touchdown against them in week 6. Hunter Henry put up 42 yards and a touchdown in week 5. Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard both put up a touchdown against them in week 4 for a total of 143 yards. Ertz put up 55 yards and a touchdown in week 3. Kelsey put up a touchdown and 103 yards against them in week 2. And Jason Witten put up 59 yards and a touchdown in week 1. The New York Giants are basically a sure thing to get a touchdown every single week if you are a tight end. So, listen to some of those names. Okay. It's Garrett Seelick, Gerald Everett, Jeff Heuerman, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard. Those aren't world beaters.
I've got one question for you. Do you know how many yards Jared Cook had?
He had 1 for 1. It was a dead. Yeah. But that's why I'm saying it's a sneaky start. He sucked last week. This week, he will not suck. Light him up. Don't be afraid. All I'm saying is the New York Giants is Oprah and her audience. The New York Giants are Oprah. Her audience is tight ends on Christmas. She's not giving away cars. They're giving out fucking touchdowns.
Okay.
Light him
Georgie, what do you got?
I'm just blown away by how high he ranked him that week. I think that's very excessive.
I think it's very, very.
A guy who has 1 touchdown on the season and had 1 yard last week.
Did you hear the names I said? Gerald Everett, Garrett Seelick, Jeff Hewerman.
Okay,
all got it done.
so the guy that I'm most looking at specifically this week is Austin Eckler. Who, and the main reason why I'm putting him in this week as not someone who's going to be a real player going forward, but specifically this week because the Chargers are playing Cleveland, and in the last 5 games he hasn't carried the ball that much, but he's averaged 4.6 yards a carry, while Melvin Gordon has averaged 2.9 yards a carry, and he's also averaged 50 yards receiving in those 3 games. And I'm not saying by any means he's going to overtake Gordon, but the Chargers are playing really well right now, and they're playing the Browns, and you got to imagine that they're just going to kill them. And you've got a guy who's been a total workhorse all year in Gordon, and you've got Eckler who's showing nice explosive plays. I think the second half is one of those where he's going to get double-digit touches and just do tons of damage on Cleveland. I think he's a great pickup this week. If you can just pick him up, toss him in your lineup for 1 week, he can make a real difference, I think.
Okay, that's a great pickup.
I do agree that Melvin Gordon.
Thanks, Darian. I appreciate that.
I agree with that 100%.
Means a lot.
For my week, my guy this week, I'm coming back to the Westbrook train. He is only 27% owned in Yahoo League, so he's still out there on the waiver wire if you need to pick him up. He's had 16 targets in the past 2 games, which, quite some volume. And this week he's facing the Indianapolis Colts pass defense, which have given up the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers so far this year. And I just really feel like this could be his breakout game. I feel like Blake Bortles has been hearing those grumblings about Eli Manning maybe coming to town. I feel like he's going to, sling the rock a little bit. And go get D.D. if you need a guy.
So how do you feel about his quarterback? That's what I want to know.
Honestly,
Dan loves him.
Not love,
let's say he's a limited quarterback, but the matchup is too good to pass up this week. And I think and Westbrook's a really good run after catch guy, so we'll see what happens. I think he's going to be an excellent, 15-point guy this week.
And not just this week, like week 15 he plays Houston, week 16 he plays San Francisco. If he can get by that week 14 against Seattle, who I don't think is actually that amazing against the wide receivers anymore moving forward. Right. But if you can get past week 14, Houston, San Francisco, D.D. Westbrook, if he blows up, could win you your league.
He could absolutely give you that edge. We're going to move on now to our next segment called Risers, Fallers, and Fakers. I'll start it off with a riser, Devin Funchess. So he's clearly the number 1 target now in Carolina, especially for the past 3 weeks since Benjamin has left. He's looked really good on the field with his targets. He's been getting separation. They don't have him doing all those quick slant routes anymore. He's doing deep digs, deep comeback routes. He had a season high last week in yards with 108 and had 12 targets. And he is definitely a big piece of this offense moving forward. And, Carolina's sitting in a good spot in their standings. They're going to keep pushing. And I think he's going to be a big part of that offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's totally established himself since he's kind of took a couple weeks to adjust after the trade with Benjamin, but now he's kind of, as he's the only guy in that role, he's averaging over 90 yards in the last 3 games. He's clearly becoming Cam Newton's guy.
It's another guy that you bring up that I'm afraid of in week 14, but I think could win you your league in weeks 15 and 16.
Yeah.
Right? 14, I'm afraid of him against Xavier Rhodes, but in Minnesota. He's at home, but he still gets Xavier Rhodes. But in weeks 15 and 16, he's got Green Bay and Tampa Bay at home. Yeah. I see those being huge games for Devin Funchess and Cam Newton.
Yeah, I see him as a definite riser. So what do you guys have for risers?
For me, I've got Marshawn Lynch. So, we've been kind of down on him a little bit, but he's starting to get more relevant in this offense. So coming into the season, the Raiders said that they would be limiting his touches to less than 20 carries per game. It made sense back then. He's old. They don't want to tire him out. But the Raiders are now in a desperate situation trying to make the playoffs. At 5-6, they are 1 game back on the Chiefs for the division lead, and they're also 1 game back from the Ravens for the second AFC wildcard spot. They gave Marshawn Lynch 26 carries this week against Denver. To me, they're getting desperate to make the playoffs, and I think Jack Del Rio is going to use him more in order to try to save his job. I see Marshawn Lynch becoming a 20-touch guy moving forward, and I think you can trust him for volume. Maybe his matchups aren't the greatest, but I think in terms of volume, I think he'll be a safe play moving forward.
Yeah, I think he's your kind of classic right now, volume RB2. He's going to get the touches, might get a touchdown, but I think that's a pretty fair way of looking at him.
I think, he's got a very high floor moving for the rest of the season. Not the highest ceiling, but definitely a higher floor.
All right, I'm going to go with Devontae Adams. First, I would like to say that I was wrong because I said a couple weeks ago that I thought he was going to be garbage, and Dan disagreed. And I'm willing to admit my mistakes because he is clearly the go-to guy for Brett Hundley. He's averaged 8.4 targets per game in Hundley's starts. Second on the team is Jordy, averaging 5. And in the last 3 games, he's averaging 14 fantasy points a game, 9 targets, and just a hair under 100 yards a game. I mean, it's clear that he's getting wide receiver 1 type volume. You never know with Brett Hundley week to week, but it seems like even when he plays poorly, Devontae Adams is still getting his targets and touches, so he's the one reliable part of that offense right now, and I think you can completely trust him going forward.
I was going to say, I actually do like Jordy Nelson this week against Tampa Bay, because I really do think it comes down to the corners for why Jordy Nelson has been thrown to, and I think this week against Tampa Bay, I could see both Jordy and Devontae having a good game, but Devontae rest of season I like better than Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, I agree. I think Devontae Adams is the one player in that offense that you could start on a week-to-week basis. As far as the Jordy start, I just don't see him and Hundley having a good enough rapport. Like, yeah, the Tampa Bay secondary is horrible, but I just see Adams getting the more quality targets and maybe the red zone.
I'm leaning more with Darren on this one. I mean, this could be the week for Jordy, but the rapport isn't there.
I think Adams is a safer play, but I think I'd be okay with Jordy. I think this is the only week I'd be okay with Jordy rest of season.
Fair enough.
Other than
Okay,
that,
so we'll move on to fallers. I'll start it off. Mine's a pretty easy one because, well, you're about to hear it. Dak Prescott. So he has had a mighty fallen from grace ever since Ezekiel Elliott got suspended. So I wouldn't necessarily rely on him at all. I wouldn't even start him. I would even almost drop him. That's how far he has fallen. In the past 3 weeks, he hasn't thrown over 200 yards, hasn't thrown a touchdown, and has thrown 5 interceptions. It clearly looks like this Dallas Cowboys offense is trending in the wrong direction. And they have no running game that they usually lean on. And their pass blocking has been historically bad. With Smith's injury, and even with him in the lineup and playing through that injury, they have not been able to protect him very well. And you really see his inexperience starting to catch up to him. And he's honestly inaccurate outside of the hash marks. I know he's not getting a lot of separation from his wide receivers, but there's just no production there whatsoever. So I would definitely put him on my faller list.
Yeah, I mean, his matchups aren't great. I mean, Washington this week, not a terrible matchup, but it's a Thursday, which is not great for quarterbacks. And then he goes at the Giants, who, despite the fact that they're not a good team, they've still got a decent defense.
Yeah.
At Oakland's okay. And then if you still have on your team for the final game against Seattle, I mean, who knows what Seattle's defense will be at that time, but it's still Seattle, and there's no real positive matchups coming up for a guy who's playing so poorly.
Exactly.
This week he just looked like he was panicking a lot. Like anytime he was
did.
under pressure at all, he just fell down. Like
Yeah.
I don't think he's like, I think it's his inexperience showing, and I think he'll be fine next season. But right now it looks like he's just panicking.
Well,
and he looks lost
it's the first adversities he's kind of facing in a career where he's had a great running game and offensive line, and just, I mean, it's a learning curve that he's got to get through. But if you have him on your fantasy team, you can't wait for him to get through that learning curve.
Exactly.
Until you see him bounce back for at least 1 week, I don't think you can start him.
Yeah, absolutely not. Okay, Dan, who do you got for faller?
For a faller, I've got Jay Ajayi. So the Eagles have a crowded backfield, and it looks like they have no intention of featuring Ajayi anymore.
Yeah.
So like the good news is that he seems to be getting some usage on the goal line, but his volume has been so low that he's become a touchdown-dependent running back. So Ajayi has only had 5 carries, 7 carries, and 8 carries in his games as an Eagle, whereas Blunt has gotten 15, 13, and 9 respectively in those games. So Jay Ajayi has been carried by LeGarrette Blunt, and Corey Clement is rising in the offense.
Sprinkle him in there.
Sorry, Corey Clement?
Yeah, so you got to sprinkle him in there.
Exactly.
It's a full committee.
Yeah.
He's gotten 4, 6, and 12 in those weeks as well. So like this offense is explosive. Ajayi will always have the upside of a touchdown in any given week, but based on his volume, you can't trust him to have a decent floor and a consistent fantasy starter that will put up yards.
Yeah, I think we all thought that he was going to do good things with Philadelphia, but he's in a timeshare where he's not even the number 1 guy in it. So I'm with you. It's a tough start.
That's a tough start.
So my faller is Orleans Darkwa. And when I said that before the podcast, both of you were like, "Well, he's not even that great of a player
That's
anyway."
Not what I was saying. Actually, I think he might be okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Well,
okay.
the point so we'll go with what I was gonna say, which was prior to last week, he'd kind of established himself as the guy with getting an average of 16 carries per game over the past 5 weeks before then, and getting at least 70 yards in all but one of them. But last week he went 11 for 30, which was not as great. But the reason really why I have him as a faller is because with the switch to Geno Smith in an offense that's already so terrible, not dynamic, no deep threat, no high quality passing plays. You got to imagine that defenses are going to be prepared to stop the run, and with a already just okay offensive line and Darkwa, who doesn't have any sort of breakaway speed, he's more of a plotter. I imagine that they're going to have just one of these, like a running game that is almost non-existent, where he's averaging 2 yards a carry, and they have to go away from it because they're losing games. And I really believe that Darkwa will not be a starter after next week when he puts up maybe a 12 for 14 kind of week this week.
I think you can start him this week and next week. And here's why. I think having a rookie quarterback come in, I think sometimes rookie quarterbacks lean on the running back.
It's not a rookie quarterback.
Or sorry, not a rookie, but like I think he might lean on the running back coming in, Geno Smith over Eli Manning. And I think that last week I think was more of a product of him playing Washington and him being down early in the game. So I think that because Washington was beating the Giants, I think that they started giving him less carries. So he only had 11 compared to 20 and then compared to 14. So I just think we'll have to take a look at what happens with Geno Smith in this offense before we can really rule Orleans Darkwa being down.
Well, being the resident Giants fan here, it's a tough time in my life right now watching football on Sundays. But the one bright spot has been Darkwa. Midway through the season, he's really come on. I kind of agree with Dan. With Geno going in, they're definitely going to lean on the run game. But I kind of side with George when I don't think he's going to be that effective, because what are they going to have, right?
Yeah,
so basically, I would say he's got a low ceiling, but he does have a decent floor. So I could see him getting around 60, 70 yards. But that's nothing to really hang your hat on, right?
And see, like I think he has a really good floor in terms of the volume he's going to get. But like when you say they're going to lean on the run, I'm thinking if I'm the opposing coach, I'm thinking, okay, that they are going to lean on the run. Let's put 7 guys in the box against a team that already doesn't have that great of a running game.
Yeah.
I think they shut him down. You get up a touchdown or two, and I worry that Darkwood, he might get 12 to 15 carries, but not do much with it, and then be phased out of the second half of the game because they're losing by 15 points.
Yeah, no,
That's my
agree.
concern.
I agree, but I think they're also going to implement a lot more rolling out, like at play action,
probably
with Geno, because he is a bit more mobile. So, like, I don't see them. I can see them starting the game with putting 8 in the box, but if Geno is able to run a little bit of play action, it might make them back off a little bit.
And by rookie
we'll
quarterback, Geno Smith has played 1 game, and he had 1 play in that game. So that's why I'm a rookie quarterback. He's never really had like NFL experience. Like, I mean,
Geno?
Geno's definitely played with the Giants.
Geno's started for 2 years.
Yeah, you're talking about maybe just with the Giants.
Oh shit. Okay, sorry.
He played a lot with the Jets.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
He's played a lot of games in New
Pretty
York,
sure
just not for the
started
Giants.
2 years for the Jets.
Yeah. Oh, my bad, boys. Sorry. I don't.
No
remember
worries.
those.
Okay.
Well, who's your faker, Darian?
Again, I haven't.
So we'll move on to fakers. My faker is a guy from the Packers offense we just kind of touched on, is Jamal Williams. So he obviously had a massive week last week against Pittsburgh, of all teams, and finishing with, I think he had 25.5 standard points. And if you combine it with the week before, he's had 36 standard league points the past 2 weeks, which is, very good. But I just don't think it's sustainable, especially in weeks 15, 16. Well, even if you throw in Cleveland in week 14, who actually has a decent run defense this year, aside from last week against Joe Mixon. But he's got Cleveland, Carolina, Minnesota for your playoffs. And that is just a murder's row for running backs. And, Hundley had a nice game, but I do kind of think that was a bit fluky because he hasn't done it at all this year. And, the touches are there. He's had 20, 18, and 21 the past 2 weeks, but he's had under 70 yards in each game. So it's not like he's turning those carries into quality, carries. So I wouldn't, rely on him for your fantasy playoffs. I think he's a faker.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think he doesn't really pass the eye test that much. He looked good this week, but I haven't been too impressed with just him watching him run the ball. And also,
he's got some straight line speed, but not much wiggle to him.
Yeah, and also, I mean, as of next week, you could have both Montgomery and Aaron Jones back, who are probably both more talented. So
that's right.
I think you might, if you need to, you can plug him in one more week and see what you can get. But I'm totally with you. I think he becomes irrelevant if those guys are healthy in the playoffs.
Yeah, my bad. I'm still kind of rattled over my Geno Smith.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry, I was not the biggest NFL fan back in 2014.
You said it? I was just like, what?
I think
My
you're thinking
apologies.
about Davis Webb.
I was not the biggest NFL fan.
That's what I thought he meant
I definitely
too.
wasn't a Jets
Yeah.
fan, so my Sincerest
Dan,
apologies.
Well, who's your faker?
Who's your faker?
My faker is, well, I mean, okay, so if you want to know my opinion
Aside
on
from your
Rex
fake
Burkhead,
football knowledge that you just.
so I don't want to, like, my official faker isn't Rex Burkhead, but if you want to know, I still think he's a faker. If you want to know how I feel about him, back it up 2 weeks, because Deion Lewis still had more carries than him in every single game this whole season, so I'm not buying into Rex Burkhead. But my real faker is Ricky Seals-Jones. So this seal to me is more of a GOAT, and not in a good way. Jermaine Gresham was a snap count monster for this team the entire season and had almost no fantasy relevance. To me, I don't personally see how a tight end who is splitting snaps is going to suddenly be a top-tier tight end every week. The 2 weeks that Seals-Jones has played, he's only had 8 snaps and 17 snaps, which is 15% and 24% of the total snap count. Gresham got 83% of snaps and 71% of snaps, respectively, in those games. I do see the argument that he's a flashy pass catcher in an offense desperate for flashy plays. I can't talk anymore. Sorry, I get that Blaine Gabbert has been looking for him whenever he hits the field. I just think that he's had 2 straight weeks of production, and defenses will start prepping for him now. I also don't see 5 targets on 8 snaps and then 6 targets on 17 snaps repeating itself. If Gresham has had close to 100% of snaps all season and done nothing, until Seals-Jones takes over Gresham and gets into the role where Gresham's receiving less than 30% of snaps, I don't see Seals-Jones repeating what he's done these 2 weeks. The only week I see him being good the rest of the season is week 16 against the Giants, because as I said before, automatic touchdown week. What do you think, Darren?
I completely disagree. I think they found themselves a good undrafted player, and they've been, upping his usage. So his first week, you said, how many snaps did he have? Sorry?
In his first week with them, he had 8 snaps.
Yeah, and then the next week?
He had 17 snaps.
So it doubled in 1 week. And he's clearly been putting up some production, and clearly Blaine Gabbert likes him.
24% though.
24%, but it's trending in the right direction. The guy that he is going to be replacing has literally done nothing. So they're looking, just like you said, they're looking for someone to get the ball. They have little to no playmakers on that offense. I think he gets a huge uptick in targets for the rest of the year. I think he's done well with his targets. He's obviously an athlete. He runs really well. So I have to disagree with that.
Yeah, I'm with Darian. I mean, he still hasn't played that much, but you saw the increase after his second week. This is a guy who's just being phased in the offense. I mean, I think it's realistic to think that he comes out this week and gets 40-50% of them. And when he's out there, he's clearly out there to be a weapon. Like, I mean,
they're looking for him.
When he's getting targeted almost half the snaps he's in, I mean, that's clearly showing that that's the trend that they're in. And he's going to have every opportunity, because you make a point. There isn't explosive players really on that offense, and he's going to have every chance to do it. I don't know if he will, but he's definitely, like, if you don't have a solid tight end that you know you're starting, like, pick this guy up and see this week.
He's 14% owned. Like, and the tight end spot is so bare this year, right? So
he's worth an ad, but okay, rest of season, would you rather have him or Kyle Rudolph?
Well, what I would say before anything,
Kyle Rudolph's like 99% owned in leagues.
Oh no,
right?
what I'm asking though is, like, because I mean, would you play him as like a top 12 guy rest of season? That's what I want to know. Would you bench a tight end over him? And I want to know where the line is. Like,
I see your argument. I would say this is the week where it's the prove it test.
Exactly.
This is the prove it test for me.
You can't say going forward, like, for the playoffs. You say pick him up. This week, and then this, he's definitely worth finding out, because there's a chance after this week that he becomes one of these guys who's like, holy shit, he's going to be my playoffs.
I will say he's worth a pickup, but I'm just saying, don't overreact and don't bench somebody who's proven.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Don't bench a top 10 tight end if you have him for him. I'm just saying there's a lot of opportunity for this guy to blow up.
Yeah, and if you're in Garbageville, sure, pick him up. But I'm just saying, don't overreact.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bench.
Fair
I wouldn't bench a
Fair
proven
enough.
guy.
Who do you got?
I've got Joe Mixon, who blew up last week. 23 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. First point I have to make is that it was against the Browns, which is always the most important point to make. And prior to that, his only game averaging more than 4 yards a carry was one in which he had 7 carries. So he's basically not even had a single real good game all year until this one. He was averaging 2.91 yards per carry. And he plays Minnesota in the second game of the playoffs, Chicago in the first. Chicago's a decent matchup, and then Minnesota's a really tough one. And I just think he's had one great game all of a sudden. Like, that's going to, like, when he's had every opportunity the whole year to be this guy, I think that it's more of an anomaly than a trend, because it should have happened earlier, and he's got tough playoff matchups, and I don't think he's going to be the guy that you're hoping for after this big week.
I mean, I agree. I think he's startable though in the playoffs. Like, I would definitely flex him. I think Cleveland isn't the worst run defense in the league. I don't know exactly where they're. I think they're around 20th.
They're actually pretty decent against the run.
Yeah, and like I think, like, showing he's had at least 20 carries in the last 2 weeks. I think that this offense is starting to turn to him in Cincinnati. So I mean, I think this is the make it or break it week because once you get 3 straight weeks of consistency, so keep your eye on him for this week. I wouldn't say he's necessarily faker until I have more data. So I think he's getting more usage, and I would start him this week.
I have to kind of agree with Dan on that one. He definitely has flex option availability. And yeah, it's clear this offense has turned to him. The past 2 weeks, he's gone, like you said, 43 carries and definitely some targets in the passing game. He definitely has the ability. So, like, when he gets the ball and he's in open field, he is pretty electrifying. It's the problem is getting past that line of scrimmage, especially in the run game, because their offensive line is so porous. But I'm looking at the schedule, and the Pittsburgh game's rough. The Chicago game's meh. Minnesota's really rough.
The roughest.
But then the championship game, he's got Detroit.
Yeah,
which is,
but the point
if
is,
you get to that
getting
point.
to there with a guy who
Exactly.
I don't like playing before, and
Fair
that's
enough.
kind of my point.
But he is flirting with RB2, RB1 for the rest of the year, just in terms of volume and his skill. So I would have to disagree.
I think
and
I'll have
say
an
he's
okay
a flex
floor if he
player.
keeps the volume.
I think he's a flex player, RB2 guy.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on now. We had this great idea to do a fantasy draft for the rest of the year. Kind of like the style of we won't be playing head to head every week, but it'll be a total accumulation of points until the end of week 16. And naturally, with our podcast, it comes with a bet and a punishment.
Significant.
A very significant punishment. So the punishment, we're going to do 2 types of bets. The first one is going to be a week-to-week matchup based where the lowest total points for the week has to, for this first week, we're going to do the sock strainer.
Oh my gosh. We should
So
never
we're
let
gonna-
Darian come up with punishments ever again.
I might have come up with this one. Well, at first I said take off your sock and sniff it.
So
to
I'm
the
blaming
loser,
Dan.
And Dan said that wasn't good enough. So I was like,
I didn't
let's
say
make a
swing the-
sock a coffee strainer. For some water.
Yeah,
So we're
that's
gonna
like
do that.
saying my house is too cold. Let's light it on fire.
Well, what can you do, right? And then the second part of the bet is for the total accumulation, it's gonna be every single bet that we've done so far, all at once for the loser.
So that is
that's Tiger Bomb,
clothespin on the nipples,
Clothespin,
Tiger
nipple,
Bomb,
yeah.
habanero pepper,
Yeah.
wasabi, slap bet.
yeah, those are them.
And whatever we do from here on out, because apparently we got a coffee
No, we're
strainer.
not gonna do those ones.
No? Oh, just the ones we
I don't
to
think
this
you need to
point.
do the coffee strainer twice.
That's
We'll
fair
we'll,
point.
we'll keep that separate.
All right,
That's
thanks,
five
guys.
bets.
Five
bets.
bad bets.
And believe me, I've done 4 of them. They suck.
Yeah.
Which I still owe you a slap. It's okay.
That
you do.
habanero was fucking awful too. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
So we're gonna get it started right away. Odds and evens for first and second and third pick.
well, I mean, so the winner of the odds even should get to pick where they want to draft, right?
Sure.
Cool.
Okay, sorry. Restart.
Darian, do you know how fingers work? Okay, we keep getting ones. Oh, you got that was a 2.
I got
Okay,
2.
cool. Darian's
I'll
get,
take-
Darian, okay, dang it. I get third selection. Darian gets to select.
I'll take first.
Okay, Darian wants first.
I'll
Yeah.
take second.
I'll
Okay.
take third.
So first overall, hold on. Let me bring my player list up.
Okay. And for everyone listening, we are gonna power through this, so
Yeah.
don't worry, we're not gonna spend too long.
I'm gonna take Lev Bell.
I'm gonna take Lev Bell.
Lev Bell.
It's a high quality pick, and I'm gonna take Todd Gurley.
Okay, I'll take Antonio Brown, and I will take. Oh boy, this is the tough one. This is the tough one.
Yeah.
I take so obviously Antonio Brown, and then I will take Mark Ingram.
Ooh.
Georgie's on the
I'm gonna
clock.
go Alvin Kamara.
All right, 2 Saints off the board.
I'm gonna take Julio Jones.
What? After all
Yep.
after all the shade you've given Julio?
Well, what can I say? He had a fantastic week last week.
all right.
And back to back, I'm gonna take Leonard Fournette.
Keenan Allen.
Oh boy, that's me now. I'm gonna take. I'll take AJ Green, and I'll take Shady McCoy.
Okay. I am going to take Brandon Cooks.
Okay. I take Todd Gurley.
I already took Todd Gurley.
Oh, you took. Oh,
That
my
was
bad.
like second overall, dude.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That would have been a hell of a steal right there.
That would have been right. Sorry, who'd you take?
I
Yeah.
took Cooks.
Cooks. Okay, I'm gonna take Gronkowski.
I think you get 2 picks.
Okay, I'm gonna take Gronkowski and Adam Thielen.
Ooh. You took AJ Green, right, Dan?
I did.
Okay. I'm gonna take. Jordan Howard.
Okay, I'll take DeAndre Hopkins. And
I've got a question. At flex, are we going to only put running backs and receivers?
And tight end.
And tight end too at flex?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna take because so I've got 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, right?
I don't know. Keep
That's
track
right.
of your
Yeah,
picks.
I got 3 and 3. I got 3 and 3. So I'm gonna take a quarterback. I'm just looking at quarterbacks right now. I'm gonna take Tom Brady.
I'm gonna take Mike Evans.
So Darian, you're up. You got 2.
I'm going to take Carson Wentz.
Okay. You got someone else there? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Ooh, I'm liking my team so far. I drafted them. I'm feeling George in a sock strainer. That's what I'm feeling right now.
Of course you are.
Yeah, it's odds. You're on the odds-on Vegas favorite to.
I'm going
have
to
the
take
sock.
Michael Thomas.
Nice pick.
I'm gonna take Travis Kelce.
I take Doug Baldwin, and since you two already have your tight ends, I guess I can just rest on that all the way to the end. So I'm gonna take another running back. I'll take Melvin Gordon.
I'm gonna take Russell Wilson.
Nice.
I'm going to take Drew Brees.
Ooh. Interesting. My computer's being a little slow here. I am going to take Christian McCaffrey.
Okay, so I believe that I have 4. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'll take Doug Baldwin.
Didn't you already take him?
Oh, I did take him
Yeah,
last
you-
round.
I was
Didn't I?
gonna say,
Oh,
yeah.
my bad. Yeah, I was trying to remember how many. Okay, so I've got 4 wide receivers. I've got 3 running backs. Got a quarterback. So if I've got 4 wide receivers, that means I've got one. I've got both my flexes in then, right? Because I've got 3 running backs.
Yes, yeah.
I've got 4 wide
Yeah.
receivers. So that's where everybody else is. Just you guys have tight ends and I don't.
And yeah, I'm missing a QB defense, and then I have the tight end, and you don't. That's
So
all
I
right?
need a tight end and a defense then, right?
And a QB. Or
Oh,
did
I have a QB. I have Tom Brady.
But we have 2. We're doing 2 QB.
Oh,
I-
2 QB.
I just
Oh,
have,
duh.
I,
That's
yeah,
where
I
I'm
have 2
confused.
flex spots and a defense left.
Okay, yeah. So I have so I have a QB, a tight end, and a defense left. So my QB, I'm going to take. So you got Wilson, Wentz, and Brady off the board, right?
And Breeze.
And Breeze is off the board too.
Yeah,
I'll take Phillip Rivers,
Ooh.
and I will take for my tight end. Actually, I'll go defense. I'll take the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Fuck!
That makes more sense because tight end I might as well.
God damn it! I was just about to forget that. I will take Baltimore.
They got beautiful matchups, 15-16.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do. All right, so that means Darren, these should be your last 2 picks, right?
I have 2 flex left.
Oh,
I have 2 flex.
Yeah, because he's last pick of this round.
I got 2 flex, a defense, and then we're doing bench.
Yeah, so we'll do. But
are you counting the bench?
no, but you should have 2 spots left in your starting lineup, right?
Yeah, two flex plays.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
but-
go.
How many?
He's the last pick in this round.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, yeah.
And I took a tight end already, so that's why I have.
Do you have 2
flex.
quarterbacks?
I have 2 quarterbacks.
Oh, okay, cool. My
Yeah.
bad. Doesn't he need defense?
I don't have a defense.
Yeah, so he has 3 picks left. So you
So
should.
you missed one of your own
You
picks.
should have 1 flex and you should have 1 defense left. We can listen
Did
back
I
later.
miss
if
one
you
of my
get whatever.
picks?
Yeah, you must have because you should definitely.
You should only have 2 positional plays left.
Should I take 3 players right now then?
I mean, when we listen back to it, you might have missed one on your list.
Probably.
Did I not write down one of them?
Probably. Because I mean, how else would it have happened?
Okay, well we'll go over it later.
Yeah. Okay.
Just take 2 guys.
I'm gonna take 2 guys. I'm gonna take P Ryan
Nice.
and Golden Tate.
Alright. I'm gonna take. take Cameron Newton.
With my last pick of the draft, I take Ertz so good. Oh baby, Zach Ertz so good. Sorry about my singing.
That was ridiculous. Okay, do you guys want to do you guys want to go one running back, one wide receiver?
Sure.
Initially, in case to be played either through injury or just you if you want to put him in.
Yeah. So one running back, one wide receiver, even one quarterback and one tight end, just for bench spots. Or we can probably we can even sort that out after if we want.
Yeah. You know, why don't we just leave it and
Sure.
and we'll stay with our starting lineup so we don't have to worry about playing in. So we'll do that. We'll stick with our lineups, and then if there are injuries, we'll make a rule where if a player's not going to play, you can pick someone up.
So I have not been writing down my picks, but should we just list off like who we have?
Okay, I'll list my team.
I'll figure it out. Like, all you guys
So
are
I've got
listeners.
Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Keenan Allen, Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans, Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, Travis Kelce, Jordan Howard, Christian McCaffrey, and the Baltimore defense. Darren, do you know who your team is?
My team, I got Lev Bell, Julio, Fournette, Gronk, Thielen, Wentz, Thomas, Breeze, P. Ryan Tate. Did I miss one? I swear to God I missed one.
I don't know.
Okay, so I've got Brady, Rivers, Ingram, McCoy, Gordon, Brown, then my wide receiver, Green, I got Baldwin, and then that's why I know I got another wide receiver in there somewhere. Sorry, I shouldn't be running them down. My defense is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and my tight end is Zach Ertz.
I must have just missed a pick and not said a player, right? Is that what happened?
I don't know.
Fuck
Because
it.
yeah,
Who
George's
cares?
got enough.
Who cares?
All right, well,
So whose pick is it right now?
done.
Yeah, I believe we're done.
No, I don't have a defense. Okay, so then
Just pick your defense.
Oh,
okay,
yeah,
Philly Eagles.
All right.
All right.
So there we go. We've got our teams. We will we'll have someone drinking through a sock next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh
Great.
boy.
I mean, odds are it'll probably be George.
Odds are my stomach was feeling great this whole podcast, by the way.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week.
We'll have everything primed for you for the fantasy playoffs, so we'll make sure we've got everything for you need to know.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
I
tune
can't
in again
wait
next Wednesday.
for the sock strainer too. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.